Hey everybody, Dr. T here. Today we are going to be discussing a form of child abuse. I have previously discussed the effects of DV on children in another video, but I feel the need to go in more depth on the subject. As stated previously, DV in a home with children can leave the children at serious risk for long-term physical and mental health problems. Even though physical abuse may not be present or witnessed by the child, verbal and psychological abuse can cause the same, if not more harm. As much as most parents would like to think that their child does not hear what's going on after bedtime or if they're in another room, think again. The child hears and sees more than we realize. Childhood exposure to parental verbal and psychological abuse, such as yelling, name-calling, intimidation, isolation, manipulation, and control, appears to be more damaging to children's future mental health than witnessing physical violence between parents. The long-term effects of children seeing one parent being verbally and psychologically cruel to another includes anxiety, low mood, and low social functioning. Exposure to the verbal and psychological dimension of DV has a detrimental impact on their psychological well-being. Social support is important for recovery from traumatic childhood events. However, findings show that exposure to high levels of verbal and psychological DV was associated with a decrease in young people's satisfaction with their social support. Verbal and psychological domestic abuse seems to be more damaging on children than physical abuse, perhaps because people are unable to recognize it and speak out about it. Definitions of verbal abuse vary, but it is generally characterized by a sustained pattern of behavior where criticism, threats, or rejection by yelling leads children to feel routinely belittled, blamed, threatened, frightened, or ridiculed. Even if the abuse is not directed at the child, they seem to internalize that fear and blame and believe if they were a better child, their parents wouldn't yell at each other. This shapes how a child sees the world, others, and themselves. Exposure to abuse, including verbal abuse, leads to an increased risk of anxiety, depression, suicide attempts, and drug use in later life. So just because you cannot see the impact of verbal and psychological abuse in the presence of a child while they're young, does not mean that it doesn't have a lasting effect. It has an impact on forming trusting relationships as an adult. Yet despite its devastating consequences, verbal abuse remains largely overlooked in public debate and policy. Preventing verbal and psychological abuse is more than just a moral imperative. It is essential for healthy brain development and lifelong well-being. So the next time you are having a heated disagreement with your significant other, take the time to find a caregiver for your child and relocate the discussion elsewhere where children cannot overhear, because what you say and how you say it could leave a child with long-term psychological effects on their mental well-being. If you or someone you know is in an abusive situation, call the National Helpline at 1-800-799-SAFE or text START to 88788. Everyone deserves a healthy relationship.